What's up, guys, and welcome down to the Matt Cave for a stream that I am really excited about because we are diving into the deep end when it comes to Resident Evil lore. Guys, this is going to be a lot of fun. Before we get started, I just want to say hi to the chat real quick. I see Brandon Looney Tunes fan 2000 is here. Callisto, he's running an errand, but he'll be back. Don't worry, we're going to be going for a little while. Leia Rose is here as well. Good to see everybody. Guys, we are going to have some fun diving into my favorite video game franchise of all time. And there's going to be a few things we're going to cover tonight, guys. We are going to play a little bit of the Resident Evil 1 remake, the one that first came out in 2002 on the Nintendo GameCube. I'm playing the ported version on the Nintendo Switch tonight. And while we're playing, we're going to purposely look for some files and dive deep into the lore of the game. And the biggest topic of tonight, and the one that is just on everyone's mind, is the new Netflix Resident Evil series worth watching? Guys, I'm going to dive deep into it, and I'm going to let you know my thoughts on the show, and if I think it's worth anyone watching, fans, new fans, old fans, whoever wants to jump in and check out a cool zombie sci-fi series, I'll let you know if it's worth it. But guys, we're going to dive into some of the gameplay of Resident Evil 1, the remake. What's up, Darth Maximus? How's it going, dude? Alright, guys. Yes, Leia Rose, there will be spiders. Alright, I already got the gameplay started, and what we're doing tonight is we're going to play as Chris Redfield, and I'm using the unlocked infinite rocket launcher, so we can just kind of keep pushing through and see if we can find as much information as we can. But this was a remake to the original game that came out back in 1996. Star Wars Obsession, what's up, dude? Don't worry, I am going to destroy all the monsters. There's nothing to be worried about. This game started for me back on the original PlayStation back in 1996, and it hooked me. I couldn't believe how much I loved this game. I loved this horror genre to begin with, and to be introduced to survival horror in a video game was unbelievable. So I couldn't believe what we were actually seeing, and then to get a remake later on was a dream come true. Alright, we got our first article here, guys. It's not much of a lore thing, but it's more about the puzzle that has to be solved at this point in the game. So I'll take you through this real quick to give you an idea, anyone who's never seen it before, what these games are all about. Because it's not just about killing zombies. It's about solving puzzles and surviving the situation. So this article comes out, and this little note says, "A mask that speaks no evil, that smells no evil, that sees no evil, and a mask that cannot speak, smell, or see evil. When all four fall into place, evil will awaken." Oh man, well that's pretty creepy. But that's referring to all the masks that we're gonna find and put here to unlock something. Now I don't know if you guys noticed here, but there's a coffin hanging from the ceiling there, and it's got four chains attached to it. And we need to put 4 masks in. So you can imagine what happens. But we're leaving this room for right now because this room is creepy. Alright, guys. Hawks Holocrons, what's up, my friend? Good to see you guys. Guys, at some point tonight, I believe the plan is, and these guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe either over on Star Wars Obsession or over on Hawks Holocrons, these guys are going to be going live with some Fortnite tonight. And there are V-Bucks on the line, ladies and gentlemen. So when that happens, I'm going to let you guys know. I asked them to let me know when they go. So, yeah, when they're ready to rock and roll, I want people to get in on that. Alright, so we're back in the mansion. We are playing as Chris Redfield, one of the main heroes of the series. Now, why talk about this game when a brand new Resident Evil series has come out? The color of the background is gray. Of which background? But anyway, the background of the game? I don't know what we're talking about. Sorry, Leia. Alright, we're going to unlock this door here. So why play some of this game when we're going to be talking about a new show based on the games? Well, there is a lot to talk about when it comes to this and the new series. We're playing as Chris Redfield, the main hero of the franchise. And his nemesis is named Albert Wesker, who we meet in this game as well, who starts off on the team. And he betrays the team, and it goes on a whole kind of revenge plot throughout some of the series. But we meet these characters for the first time in this game right here. Couldn't open the door right there for a second. Yes, this is towards the beginning of the game. The Obsession says, this scared the crap out of me when I was younger. Yeah, me too. Still does to this day. In fact, what's about to happen right here is pretty creepy too. This game involves a corporation known as the Umbrella Corporation. And to the public, they are in the medical field. They are a pharmaceutical company looking to, help the world, make medicines, find cures for diseases. Meanwhile, beneath the surface, they are actually working on bioweapons and creating things made from viruses, and really have their teeth sunk into all kinds of things throughout the world, especially the main city they're located in, Raccoon City, which is where these initial games take place. And Leia Rose says her Darksaber is ready. So the premise of this first game is that there's been some bizarre murders in the area, and people are investigating it. And this is a special team from the Raccoon City Police Department known as STARS is sent to investigate. Their first team, Bravo team, is sent out, and all communication is lost with them. So they send Alpha team out, which is led by Albert Wesker and Chris Redfield, along with their partners Jill Valentine and Barry Burton. When they get to this point, when they reach the mansion, they've been separated because they've been attacked by monsters in the woods. They make it all the way into this mansion that's in the middle of the woods, and they get separated. So now we're on our own as Chris. We don't know where Wesker and Jill went, and Barry is missing from the start. So we start to uncover a lot of a mystery what's going on here. As we travel through this mansion, we're finding all kinds of monsters. We're finding zombies. We're finding dogs that are... I keep hitting the wrong button. I'm sorry, guys. We're finding dogs that are zombies themselves, which is crazy. And they go attacking you at every chance they get. And as you go through the game, the challenges and the monsters evolve, and they become more and more of a threat. Throughout the game, you're able to find all kinds of items, and there's puzzles to solve just to make it through the mansion and all the different areas in this game. And as you can see, when this game came out, this remake in particular, they really upped the ante on the graphics. When you look at the original games, which you can see a full playthrough of here on the Mac Cave, I did the director's cut of the original game on the PS1 and a full playthrough as Chris Redfield. Definitely worth checking out, but the reason I'm playing the remake is because the lore goes even deeper in this one. So it gives you a lot of choices of what you could do, how much you can carry. You're very limited on space. The whole idea is to survive the entire scenario while dealing with these almost impossible odds. Now, we have an infinite rocket launcher tonight, so we're not too worried about the creatures that are coming at us, but we want to find the files. There are documents scattered around this game that give deeper information into what was going on in this story. Oh, and we are getting attacked. See what happens when I look away for a second? A zombie gets me. Let's see, can we get our dagger back? No, we can't. So we used up that dagger. Oh well. Phil McCracken, what's up, my friend? The Stanleys is here. Smalls is here. Welcome, everybody. And Darth Maximus, I think I said hi to you. Vader's Lair, what's up, dude? Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are talking all things Resident Evil. And before this night is over, we are going to be diving into the new Netflix series. I finished all 8 episodes. And I got a lot to say about it. So, this is the basis of how these games really start. You get these fixed camera angles, you get limited inventory, you are traveling by yourself, and you're taking on these challenges all alone, which is really one of the things that makes the franchise so terrifying, is that you are on your own. There's no co-op in these original games. It's not until way later that you even get the option of playing co-op. And then even then, a lot of people just go at it by themselves anyway. So why are we playing the first game? Well, it really comes down to the character Albert Wesker. He is going to be a key factor in this entire stream tonight because of his incorporation to the new show. And there's a little bit of controversy when it comes to that character and the Netflix show. Some of you, I'm sure, have probably read some articles about it and probably know what I'm talking about already. But for those who don't, we'll be getting there. Don't worry. Starz is very familiar with the Umbrella Corporation as a pharmaceutical company. They don't see that there's anything else going on, though they've heard some strange things about, maybe some conspiracy theorists putting things out there and writing articles, but a lot of people, the public, just wasn't really believing it because Umbrella was helping everybody. Umbrella was providing all of the medicine and herbs and all kinds of things to this town, this small Midwestern town. As far as the public was concerned, they love Umbrella. They are providing everything for them, not only getting medicine, but they're providing jobs for the community. There are so many people in Raccoon City that work for Umbrella. So as far as they're concerned, Umbrella is the good guy. They are doing everything for the community. They're doing everything to support this town and keep them thriving. Well, little do they know, Umbrella is working on secret projects, and they have some contracts with certain governments, usually the American government at the start, but it does expand worldwide as you get later into the series. By the time we see them there have been multiple outbreaks, and what happened here in this mansion was an experiment got a little out of control. One of the scientists, one of the doctors, they were bit. Ooh, I think we have to watch out for something here, guys. Oh, no, I thought there was a zombie right here. Okay, I panicked for no reason. Sorry, guys. So, an experiment gets a little out of hand, and one of the scientists are bit by whatever thing they're working on. It was probably one of the zombie dogs, if I remember correctly. They get infected, and then it kind of gets held under wraps. They're trying to just avoid talking about it, not letting it go public. But the virus, the T virus, which is what Umbrella is working on, it spreads via bites or saliva, or, things like that through the blood. Eventually, these viruses evolve over time. Some of them become airborne, but for the most part, the main virus we deal with is the T virus, or codenamed Tyrant virus, and that is transmitted via bites. So if an infected bites you, within a certain amount of time, you yourself will turn into a zombie, a creature, something that is just going to terrorize everyone around you. And that's what happened in the lab that is located underneath this mansion. By the time the Starz team arrive, or even before that, before the Bravo team arrives, an outbreak has occurred here in the Arkley Mountains, just on the outskirts of Raccoon City. Umbrella is frantically trying to control the situation, so they set something up. They want a special team to go in, but they need it to look good to the public. So, being that they pretty much own the police and they own everything, they send in the Raccoon City Police Department Special Forces, the Starz team. Now, what everyone on that team doesn't realize, and what they don't know, is that their leader, Albert Wesker, is actually working for Umbrella. His job is to bring in this Special Forces team to take on these would-be bioweapons that are meant to be sold to the governments around the world as weapons. And they need combat test data. So here we have I'm going the wrong way. I'm sorry. I'm like barely paying attention to what I'm playing. They send in this team to basically fight these creations. Oh, don't shoot him. He's got grenades on him. That's what I panicked about just before, guys, when I turned the corner. And I thought someone was going to be there. I'm playing on the next round, which is called Once Again. The trick with this, and when you have your unlocks in here, there is a single zombie. It's actually Forrest from the Bravo team running around in random places around the mansion, but strapped to him are bombs. And if even a single shot hits him, everything blows up and it's game over. So we gotta watch out for him. So they send in this special forces team to take on these monsters and get this combat data, and that is what Wesker is doing. He is monitoring the situations to see what's going on here. Now, throughout the game, there's all different kinds of puzzles. Like, we picked up a dog whistle a little while ago. With it, and I should have read through that, I forgot that there was text on the picture. The picture shows you where to go with this, but there's text talking about a scientist who had one of the dogs he was working with, but with that dog in his collar, he kept a key. So we're going to call that dog, which at this point, unfortunately, is a zombie. And we need to get that key. And there it is. Oh, we got another one! That actually scared me. I wasn't expecting the second dog. Alright, so throughout the game when you pick up items, you can actually examine them to take a look to see if there's anything else going on with this item. We can spin all around, look at this collar, oh, really cool looking, but wait, there's something to press. What happens when we press that switch on the collar? We open it up, and now we're going to find the key that we need. Turns out it's the armor key. Throughout this mansion, there are different themed locks. We already have the sword key. Now we have a fake imitation armor key, which we're going to need to use to swap out for the other one. So all kinds of different puzzles like that as you're trying to figure out what to do throughout the game. And the Stanley says Umbrella Corp is a lot like Wayland from the Alien franchise. Yes, very much so. There's a lot of inspiration that was taken when Resident Evil was created, especially when dealing with evil corporations and things like that. So there's going to be a lot of similarities, especially to something like Weyland-Yutani that we see in the Alien franchise. Yeah, you're definitely right. And Leia Rose says, sounds like things happening now. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities to the world as it is now with the, we'll call it the C virus that went around in real life, which surprisingly actually is discussed in the Netflix series, but we'll dive into that in a little bit. All right, so we've got a couple of things here that we can use. We do have our sword key, and we do have our armor key. So we want to work our way through here to try to utilize these keys as quick as we can and empty our inventory. Now, the sword key we'll probably end up using first, but we got to get the replacement armor key. So that's one of the things that we want to do. Lots of keys in these types of games, lots of doorways to go through, all kinds of stairwells. It gets pretty crazy in this game. I think I hear Forrest. I think I hear him walking around somewhere. Did I just go the right way? I hope I did. I think I did. Now, the whole idea of dealing with zombies, an evil corporation, conspiracy, it's the things that really make up the plots of really cool movies, right? So when this first came out in 1996, and then it spawned its sequels, and then we even have the remakes now, fans over the years have always wondered, what would it be like if we had a Resident Evil movie or a show? Mostly we wondered about what it would be like if we had a movie. Everyone was wondering, like, oh, let's see these characters in live action. Let's see this take place in like a feature-length film. This is pretty cool here. When we swap out the key, a trap is initiated. But we already have the replacement, so we are going to quickly disarm that trap, and now we have the key that we need. So we thought about it. What would it be like to have a movie where there's traps like this in a mansion or in a lab, and we're set out to go find out what's going on with this company and stop this threat to the world? We fans like asked for this for a very long time. A very long time. Well, along the way, we actually did get a Resident Evil movie eventually. And even before that, we had a couple of CG films that came out that continued within the game lore. But we were so excited when a Resident Evil movie was announced, and I went to see it in theaters. And it actually starred one of my favorite actresses, Mila Jovovich, and her husband, Paul Anderson, who directed another video game franchise, Mortal Kombat, back in 1995. Say what you will about that film, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. I remember seeing that in theaters and was so excited to see my favorite Mortal Kombat characters come to life on the big screen. So I was like, you know what? I've seen him do it before. He's going to do it again. He's going to bring my favorite characters to life on the big screen, this time in the world of Resident Evil. Well, what we got was very different than what we were expecting. What Paul Anderson decided to do with the franchise was really tell his own version of it. And fans weren't expecting that we didn't really know what to expect. When we first saw like teaser trailers and everything for that first Resident Evil movie, and we saw Mila on there, we were kind of thinking, oh, that's going to be, she's either playing Jill Valentine or Claire Redfield. That's what a lot of us assumed, because there wasn't a whole lot of information out there yet. Well, she actually played her own character named Alice. And the franchise, which spanned... Oh boy, that's Forrest. We gotta run. Oh my goodness. Oh no. Run away. He's gonna blow up. She ended up playing a brand new character named Alice. And she is the lead throughout the franchise. And it follows her character. And the first movie, though it had some references to some things in the games, mostly the first and second game, it did not follow the story. Almost at all. It was very much rewritten. And a lot of us came out of the theater a little confused. We weren't sure what we just saw. And I remember seeing that movie with my best friend, which he would actually watch me play a lot of these games, the Resident Evil games. So he was very familiar with the story, and we both came out of that like, that was kind of weird. It was still good. We both, for the most part, enjoyed the movie. But it wasn't Resident Evil that we were expecting. And then when it ended, it ends on a big cliffhanger, so we kind of assumed there would be a sequel to it, which there was. There were quite a few sequels to that franchise. Taking a break from talking about the franchise history for a moment, we are now being introduced to Rebecca Chambers,
Chris Redfield,
from the
Alpha
Bravo
team.
team, and her on the ground there is Richard, also part of the Bravo team. These guys arrived first on the scene and have been through quite a bit. It wasn't until later, after this remake was made on the GameCube, they also made a prequel to the Resident Evil series called Resident Evil 0, where you actually get to play as Rebecca Chambers and meet a brand new character named Billy Cohen. But we will be diving into that story element in a little while, because it's actually important when it comes to the new Netflix series. Guys, I'm going to keep coming back to that Netflix series while we're going, because I'm sure plenty of people have heard a lot of reviews and a lot of things critics are saying about the show already. And what is it like when this happens, right? Every time something comes out, every time something with an existing franchise comes out, the overwhelming loud voices that we hear are that, hey, it was terrible. It sucks. The writers don't know what they're talking about. Who gave this to these filmmakers? They have no idea what they're doing with it. Well, I don't know what they were watching, but apparently I experienced something very different. And I will be going into that in full detail when we reach the point in this stream that we're going to dive into that Netflix series. But talking about Resident Evil 0 and the characters in it, very important when it comes to that Netflix series. And I will explain why in a little bit. All right, we're going to go get some medicine for Richard here to try to keep him alive a little bit longer, but it's all for naught. Those of you who have seen me play through this game before know the fate of Richard. T. Davidson, what's up, my friend? Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the stream. We're going to go get some medicine here. We're going to watch out for Forrest, because he could jump out at any time with all those bombs attached to him. No problem, T. Davidson. We were just talking about some of the history in the Resident Evil franchise and how this gameplay of the first game plays out here. Oh, Forrest is behind that door. We gotta watch out for him. What's up, X-Wing? There's no way you're talking about me. Oh, it's Forrest. We gotta run. We gotta run. We cannot shoot him. We cannot shoot him. Oh, my goodness. Okay, let's duck in this room here for a moment because we gotta get the medicine out of here anyway. So, there's definitely a lot of elements that are going to come into play when we talk about the Netflix series, but in this first story, this first part of the story we were all introduced to, we had no idea what was going on. The idea of Umbrella making bioweapons, this was all brand new to us. We had no idea what to expect, and that was the craziest thing of seeing this play out. And once we were so familiar with the story and the movie came out, we were expecting to see that story play out on the big screen. Ah! Oh, he's throwing up. Oh, get away from me, Forrest. So when we go to see this movie that does not play out the way we expected, we were confused when we reach the end of that movie. There was a lot of references to everything we knew from the games, but they were like subtle little Easter eggs for the most part. It wasn't actually the story being told, though there were similar characters to it. When the sequel to that movie came out, I believe the filmmakers were pretty much listening to fans, because a lot of the complaints of that movie were it wasn't the story of the game. So when we got to the sequel that Paul Anderson did, it dove into a lot from the games, like a ton, from both Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Almost too much. That movie had so much, hey, this is from the game, remember this? That it almost takes you out of it, because it makes it difficult to tell the story when you're focusing so much on just throwing things in your face to say, hey, here's the member berries. We were paying attention. Now, don't get me wrong. The second Mila Jovovich Resident Evil movie is pretty fun, and I still enjoy that one. And I recommend it to anyone who's a Resident Evil fan, especially since Nemesis is in it. He's fantastic, and he literally looks just like he looks in the original game. It's awesome. So there's really cool practical effects in that movie, and it's just overall a really fun ride. All right, we're going to give this medicine to Richard here, and then we're going to move on with the mission here.
It's not safe here. Let's get Richard to a safe
place. As these teams meet here in the first game, Bravo team and Alpha team are coming together. They're trying to figure everything out, and we learn a little bit of information from each member of the team that we come across.
Good.
Rebecca now, at this point, has already been through a whole lot that we did not know about until years later when we get the prequel.
Rebecca,
so she's more informed than Chris realizes.
I'm going to continue my investigation.
But in this particular game, she's handled more like a very much a side character that's just there to support you every once in a while. She can heal your character because she is the medic on the team. But for the most part, she doesn't get really all that involved. I still hear Forrest over here. We gotta run. You hear that clamoring that like almost sounds like keys or something like that? Those are the grenades and bombs all hanging from Forrest. X-Wing says this dude's ability to spit factual, effortlessly dominating games is both infuriating and inspiring. Dude, I'm messing up this whole way, man. I don't know how to do this. No, it's fun, man. I love talking about this stuff with you guys. And Resident Evil is one of those franchises that I've played literally for decades, so it's just a ton of fun to talk about it. I think I missed an item. Yes, I did. So coming over here is actually pointless. I'm going to have to backtrack because, see, I messed up. See, I'm not perfect. But we'll use a key over here, and we're going to take a look at a document. Guys, there is a file in this room, and we're going to take a look at it. And we're going to actually read the files this time. Last time we played this game together, guys, we just kept running through and just plowing through zombies so we could just get to every cutscene and see the story play out. Well, this time, we're going deeper. Oh, look at that guy just laying there. We got some ammo on the bed, but we don't need that. Oh, and a closet banging around. Let's get this guy out of there. Coffee on Koromon. What's up, my friend? Welcome to the stream. Good night, zombie man. What do we got here? a little small key. So now we got 3 keys in our inventory. We are taking up our very... Oh, this guy is up. Our very limited space. I think I just heard that guy's head explode. Nope, it didn't, but it sounded like it. Okay, let's take a look at this desk here. Alright, guys. We have found our first document of this playthrough. And like I said, last time we skipped them. But let's get a little insight to what was going on with the people in this mansion before, during, and after the outbreak. This is the Keeper's Diary. May 9th, 1998. Now, just to give you a timeline here, the game where we're playing right now takes place in September of 1998. May 9th, 1998. Played poker tonight with Scott and Elias from security, and Steve from research. Steve was the big winner, but I think he was cheating. Scumbag. May 10th. One of the higher-ups assigned me to take care of a new creature. It looks like a skinned gorilla. Feeding instructions were to give it live animals. When I threw in a pig, the creature seemed to play with it, tearing off the pig's legs and pulling out the guts before it actually started eating. Ugh. May 11th. At around 5 a.m., Scott woke me up. Scared the shit out of me, too. He was wearing a protective suit. He handed me another one and told me to put it on. Said there'd been an accident in the basement lab. I just knew something like this would happen. Those bastards in research never sleep, even on holiday. May 12th, 1998. I've been wearing the damn spacesuit since yesterday. My skin's getting grimy and feels itchy all over. The goddamn dogs have been looking at me funny, so I decided not to feed them today. Screw them. May 13th. Went to the infirmary because my back is all swollen and feels itchy. They put a big bandage on it and told me I didn't need to wear the suit anymore. All I want to do is sleep. May 14th. Found another big blister on my foot this morning. I ended up dragging my foot all the way to the dog's pen. They were quiet all day, which is weird. Then I realized some of them have escaped. Maybe this is the way of getting back at me for not feeding them the last 3 days. If anybody finds out, I'll have my head handed to me. May 16th. Rumors going around that a researcher who tried to escape the estate last night was shot. My entire body feels hot and itchy, and I'm sweating all the time now. I scratched the swelling on my arm, and a piece of rotten flesh just dropped off. What the hell's happening to me? May 19th. Fever gone, but itchy. Today, hungry and eat doggy food. May 21st. Itchy, itchy. Scott came. Ugly face, so killed him. Tasty. Itchy. Tasty. Well, that was either this guy or this guy. But either way, this ended badly for everybody. Documents like this and files that are scattered around this mansion play out in very similar fashion. We get the story of the people who experienced the outbreak as it happened in the mansion. JT Lovecraft, what's up, dude? I got here and you read Itchy Tasty Zombie Transformation. Dude, it's one of the best files in the whole game, and it's early on in the game. I love that one. It's so great. So many Resident Evil fans quote that one. I've seen people wear t-shirts with that on there that just say Itchy Tasty. It's one of the craziest ones, man. And I agree with Coffee on Korriban. It is awesome seeing everyone here tonight. I appreciate everybody stopping by. I hope everything sounds good and everything. If there's any issues, guys, as always, let me know. Alright, we unlocked that door, but I did miss a step. So I do want to... I think I want to backtrack and grab the item that we need. So we'll go back out this way and we'll catch that. I think it's on the other side. Yes. Where are we? We are in... Oh, we can unlock this. Might as well while we're here. And I think there's a door for the sword key down this creepy stairwell. So what do you guys think of small storylines happening within a main story. I don't know about you guys, but I love the smaller elements like that are world building in any grand, big, giant story, right? So this franchise spans several sequels, and it goes on for quite a while. But these little moments that happen to side characters that for the most part don't even get a name most of the time. You hear their story in something like that, a document, or maybe you see like in a movie, there's like found footage or something, and then you get the story of what happened to them. I love little elements like that. It builds the world, and it's so much fun to learn about it. And I've been through these games so many times that I remember these little stories, not just the main story of how everything's playing out, but these little moments like Itchy Tasty, a classic. Oh, JT, I'm definitely a Mealy fan as well. I absolutely love her in The Fifth Element. One of my favorite characters of all time, Lilu. Oh boy, these guys are waking up. Okay, let's get back up these stairs. So, speaking of which, hey, Callisto made it. Welcome back. Yeah, these original games are so awesome. I mean, this is the remake of the original, but this goes back to 2002. This came out, like I said earlier, on the GameCube. I was shocked at how good this game looked back on the GameCube. And yes, Callisto, Fifth Element, awesome movie. I absolutely love that film. So, we get a lot of things happening in the world of Resident Evil in movies already, starring Milla Jovovich, and there's a whole lot of different cast members that come in. We get to see a live-action version of Jill Valentine. We meet Claire Redfield. Along the way, we meet Barry Burton. We even see Leon. But all of the characters are changed. Anytime we meet a legacy character in those films, there's something different about them where they're a little off. And it was the first thing that most Resident Evil fans pointed out. It was that these characters weren't quite right. Some of them were so different that their entire character, as far as the story was concerned, was wasted. Especially in the later sequels. In my opinion, I'm sure there's plenty of people that love every single one of those films. In my opinion, by the time you get to the last 3 films in that series, it's not playing out really well. In fact, it even feels like some of the people, as they're acting, they don't even really care. It's unfortunate because I love the franchise so much and I wanted to see these characters done so well. So we went through a string of many, many movies. I have all of them because I'm just a big fan anyway, and it's a part of history, and I want to have all of those pieces to this. So we get through all those movies, and in between, we do get some CG animated films. A bunch of them were on Netflix for a while. They might still be. I have the Blu-ray copies of them. And these CG films actually follow the games. They're part of the games. So you can actually, if you look up timelines of where they take place, and you play through the games, and then watch a certain one of those movies, you're kind of keeping the story going. To a point. The CG films came into mixed reviews, but for the most part, I think they were pretty well done.
This room is equipped with all sorts of medical supplies.
Oh, this is where you find out that Rebecca can heal you, so you get the option to do that. Callisto says, "Can I just say I hated the Claire Redfield characterization in the live-action movies, but I loved Degeneration and I loved Claire in that movie." I agree. Again, it was one of those things where her character just wasn't handled the way we wanted to see her in live action, so it just kind of felt wasted. And nothing against the actress that played her, it's just the way the character was written and how she was handled overall. It's, you know, those movies were made and designed to follow Mila's character, Alice. So everybody else was sidelined as side characters, which makes sense for what they were doing with those movies. And that's okay. that is
Umbrella.
okay. There's
Don't you
nothing
know?
wrong with putting
They're
your
only
own
the biggest
interpretation and own
taxpayers
spin
around
on
here.
existing franchises.
most of
Just
these
at the
medicines right
time,
here.
as fans,
Homegrown in
this being the
Raccoon City.
first outing with
There's
getting
not much left,
Resident
so
Evil outside
take
of the
care of
video
yourself.
games, it wasn't what we were expecting. So I think that put a bad taste in a lot of fans' mouths at that point, and a lot of fans didn't give the later ones a chance, which is kind of unfortunate if you look at it. It's, you know, they weren't terrible all the way through. I would say the first 3 films with the Alice character are pretty solid. I think it's a pretty solid trilogy right there. Yes, Ali Larter played Claire. She was great in Heroes, by the way. That was an awesome show. Heroes back on, I think that was NBC. I love that show. She was great in that as well. T.U. Davidson says, the movies were cool, but as RE fans, they were shit because... but packed with scary action. I like the CGI films a lot more. I'm with you. The films felt like they were pretty rushed, and there was a lot of things packed in, especially in the sequels, but the CGI films they took their time with and added to the story of the games, which was pretty awesome. I think I want to put one more thing away in here before we go. I know we're going to look for the music note to add to that. Do I have the lighter already? I do have the lighter already. Okay, so we're in good shape right there. So at that point, we have a mix between... Oh, Hawks is saying Mila carried them. Yeah, no, she definitely carried those films. Oh, no! I thought that was Forrest. I thought we were about to die. Oh, no, there's Forrest. I gotta get up those stairs. Get away from me, Forrest. Go away. I know, you're a Bravo team. We used to be friends, but now you're just a monster, so get away from me. We need to go out that door he came out of. A fun challenge for after you beat the game. Oh my... He's still here. Was this where I wanted to go? I think that's where I wanted to go. No, it's not. I'm in the wrong spot. But it's okay. We can cut through here. Yeah, Mila definitely carried those films. Those films were made for her. It was her husband writing and directing them, so, you know, yeah. They're gonna be for her. And you know what? Nothing wrong with that either. I think her performance overall was really great. I love her as an actress. So, of course I was gonna give it a chance. But as a Resident Evil fan, I was still dying for more. I wanted the Resident Evil that we were all hoping for. And it just wasn't there yet. I know I'm kind of circling around here, guys, because I'm only like half paying attention to what I'm doing. Splitting between the two. Usually I'm a lot faster at these games. But there's a key area to use right over here. Oh no, is that Forest again? It's... We wanted more. We wanted the story to play out. So we... started getting a lot of rumors after that series was done that it was already going to be rebooted and not continued. So we thought, oh, you know what? We're gonna get something brand new, because by the time we got to the final entry in that series, the whole thing seemed to be closed out pretty well. For the most part. So they could have continued it, but we were all kind of hoping that they don't. I don't remember the order to do this in. So we start hearing for several years rumors that there's going to be a reboot. And we kept waiting, and then we get a little bit more. Man, I'm really messing up this puzzle. Hold on one second, guys. Let me take a look at this real quick here. It's the guy with the lance. That's the sword. The axe and the shield. So shield, axe, sword, lance. Shield, axe, sword. Oh, come on. Sword. No. And then this one, lance. I don't remember. Wait, what? I pushed this in and that one came out. So if I do this one... Okay, this shield has to be last so that that goes in. Okay, now shield. And then this should be solved. I always forget the order of this one. Okay, there we go. Now we can hit the button without getting killed by poisonous gas. So years later, before we get more movies, we start getting more sequels to the games. More of the games come out. We got practically a reimagining, but it was the 7th entry in the main storyline. And we get Resident Evil 7, which put a whole new spin on the games. The games had started to reach more of an action-oriented side by the time it got to 5 and 6. And 7 brought it back to survival horror. It goes in first person. We're meeting brand new characters. And it brought the fear back in these games. And it started to bring the mystery back. Because by then, we wanted to know what was going on with Umbrella. They disbanded. And there was a whole big conspiracy going on with that. So we all wondered, where was this going? How were they going to play out this story? And now as we're getting brand new stories coming out in the games, we're still wondering what's happening with the movies, or is there going to be a show? We keep hearing rumors throughout. It wouldn't be until years later that a brand new Resident Evil movie would be announced. And we started to get some stills, oh boy, what was that? Oh, hi. We started to get some pictures from the sets. Holy moly. Sorry. Stirred up a hornet's nest over here. Oh my goodness. Hello, I have this for you. And then I also have this for you. I hope you enjoyed. We start seeing pictures from the sets. And one of the first pictures I saw was of the Raccoon City Police Department front of the building, the main door with the big sign. And it looked exactly like it does in Resident Evil 2, my favorite Resident Evil of all time. When I saw that, I was blown away. And then I started seeing some images of zombies. And they looked great. I mean, they looked like, not just great, they looked like the next level of what like George Romero style zombies would be. I mean, this all practical effects and everything. And it looked phenomenal. And these are just pictures coming from it. And then we see pictures of more sets of areas around Raccoon City. And it's looking just like the games. It's looking a lot like the remakes of Resident Evil 2 and 3. And I was feeling really good about it, guys. I was feeling really good about this new movie that was coming out. And it got delayed, like everything else did in the world, when Virus C came out and hit the world in just a terrible way. It got delayed, and we were thinking, oh no, it might get canceled. Well, in between that time, all of a sudden we get, hello doggy, we get before the movie comes out, another Resident Evil project gets announced, and actually comes out first, and it was on Netflix. It was a CG animated Resident Evil series, which again, in the same fashion as the prior CG films, they follow in the story of the game franchise. They are completely connected. In fact, the game characters are in it as they're portrayed in the games. And it was pretty cool. It was, an interesting story following Leon Kennedy from the second game, and we see Claire again, and there was, it was major ties to the games again. It felt more like watching cutscenes from the games rather than really a brand new show or anything like that. So it kind of held us over a little bit as fans, and we got a little more Resident Evil, but we're all itching for this movie that was announced. Then we get the title, Welcome to Raccoon City. I was like, okay, cool. We're going to start everything off based on the pictures and seeing that the outbreak had happened. It's going to take place somewhere during Resident Evil 2 and 3, which I was fine with. From what I read, it was also going to dive in potentially in flashbacks to the mansion, what we're playing right now, and give us kind of a lead up in building the new franchise. Holy moly. And Forrest is back there too. We are in trouble, guys. I'm really messing up this game as I'm talking here. Well, we're going to dive into some other things other than the game in just a few minutes. But I wanted to let you know how things were going before we got to this new series. So this movie got delayed until, believe it or not, this year. The same year that the new series came out. And I didn't get to see Welcome to Raccoon City in theaters. I missed out on it, but I was really psyched for when it was coming out on Blu-ray and digital and all that. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm eventually going to see it. And I tried not to pay attention to the critics and reviews because, like anything else, everything that was coming out got slammed. Everything was, you're told it sucks. Everything is bad. It's all terrible. There's nothing worth watching. And I was like, you know what? That can't be true with everything. So I love Resident Evil. I'm going to check it out no matter what. And we'll see what we get. But I did hear some things about it, but I chose to ignore it. I go into this film. I see characters that I know. And it's following primarily Leon and Claire from the second game. My favorite Resident Evil game in the entire series. And their characters are changed. And not just a little bit. Leon is treated like a loser. Like he's this deadbeat guy who like failed things with the police force and just he only got his position because apparently his father had something to do with political people in the world of Raccoon City. Whatever it was he was just treated like a loser, and he was sent to Raccoon City as a new rookie over there, but nobody liked him. And I'm like, why is Leon being treated this way? And then on top of that, the person that was cast, I'm missing every shot here, really didn't look like Leon, like at all. So that kind of threw people off. But it was like, okay, whatever. You got kind of similar haircut or whatever. Let's just let that pass, and we'll deal with it. Claire's character, her origin was changed. Her and her brother, Chris Redfield, who we're playing as right now. And the way they did this, they tried to link it to the remakes and also tell the story of the first game all mashed together. Well, it wasn't just that. As I got through this very short movie, guys, Welcome to Raccoon City is a very, very short film. And they crammed plot elements from not just Resident Evil 1, not just Resident Evil 2, not just Resident Evil 3, but even Resident Evil Code Veronica. They took 4 games that have their own plot lines and solid, well-developed stories, and they crammed a mashup of story elements from all 4 of those games into this. I think the movie was like an hour and 20 minutes or something like that. It's ridiculously short. And they crammed all of it into this movie. It felt like a mess. It was a disaster. And the whole time I'm watching this movie, I kept going because the look of the film, the sets, the style of it was Resident Evil. It was the closest thing we had to Resident Evil in live action as far as what we were hoping for as fans. But the story... Wow, Forrest, you almost got me. The story was handled very poorly. It felt like... Imagine someone watched the trailers for 4 different movies, but didn't watch the movies, and then decided to tell a single story using all 4 of those based on only what they saw in the trailers. That's what it felt like. And it did not go over well, and it got slammed, and for good reason. Callisto says, oh my god, I was looking forward to that movie, but didn't watch it because I heard it was terrible. Now I know why. You know what? It's one of those things where, if you're a Resident Evil fan, I still recommend checking it out, because there are elements in it that are cool. They bring in Lisa Trevor, who we see in this game. They bring in a whole bunch of story elements that are cool to see on screen. It's just, at the end of the day, they're handled poorly, and it doesn't really work. The Stanley says, Welcome to Raccoon City was meh, not terrible, but far from good. Yeah, it's one of those things I still recommend Resident Evil fans check it out, but lower your expectations. I mean, it's a rough ride, and it's tons of Easter eggs, and the look, like I said, the look and the sets, everything looks fantastic. It's just the writing was terrible, and the way the characters were handled was not good at all. So it just makes it a rough ride, but it's still worth experiencing to kind of see the look and what the potential was, what could have been. So at that point, I had very little hope for a good live-action Resident Evil happening. It just seemed like no matter what, whoever was in charge of having the franchise rights for film and shows weren't really caring about retelling the story from the games. They just wanted to keep doing their own thing, which, don't get me wrong, that's okay with me. Having your own interpretation of something is okay, as long as you don't damage the source material by doing it. Be respectful to it. And Welcome to Raccoon City was not really respectful of the source material. It breaks the story. Meanwhile, it was so weird. It was like, it looked like on the surface it was trying to tell the story of the games, but then at the same time it was like breaking everything where it made the stories not make any sense. So it couldn't continue, and I don't think we will ever see a sequel to that film because it just doesn't function that way. I don't think we'll see a sequel to it. I'd be surprised if we do. So then it gets quiet again in the world of Resident Evil live action or shows or anything, even the CG films. And then we get the announcement of the Netflix series. Now, this was actually announced quite a while back, and then a lot of people, myself included, thought it was just shelved and fell through the cracks, especially after Virus C hit. But it was still going, and the delay, in my opinion, may have actually saved this show. So one of the first things that comes out is a picture of the cast. Now guys, I'm going to pause the game here at this point, and we're going to change gears. We're going to talk the Resident Evil Netflix series. We are going to get into some details here. Callisto says they have so much wonderful material to work from. It's sad that it still wasn't enough to craft a good narrative. Exactly. There is a ton to this story. So much to work with, but it all depends on how it is used. Well, we're up to it, guys. Let's take a look at a couple of things here. Alright. If you recall, everybody, earlier in the stream, I mentioned that Albert Wesker is a key element to the whole reason why I'm doing this stream and why we're going to be talking real heavy into the Netflix Resident Evil series. So we are going to take a look at Albert Wesker for a little bit here and dive into his story. Now, what are we looking at here on screen? Well, back in 1996 on the original PlayStation, we were first introduced to Albert Wesker in live action. What we are looking at right now is a picture of the very first time we had a live action Resident Evil, and it was in the original game. The opening cinematic was filmed with real actors, and this was our Albert Wesker. T. Davidson says, I binged the series on the weekend, so yes, let's get into this. Yeah, absolutely. And guys, I will say this right now before we push forward. heavy spoilers because I'm diving in here, guys. There is a lot to talk about the show, and it's very difficult to talk about without actually talking about it. So, heavy spoilers. If you have any interest in seeing the show and not knowing what's going to happen, you might want to step away now. But if you don't care about spoilers, or you've already seen the series like I have, we're diving in. Alright guys, Albert Wesker. The main villain of the original series, the original game specifically, we see him meet his end, at least what we thought was his end, in the original game. He then shows back up in later entries. He shows up a little bit in Resident Evil 4. He shows up in Resident Evil Code Veronica. And then we see him again in a major way in the 5th game, Resident Evil 5. Callisto says, I have no problem with spoilers. Never have. He's ready to go. Let's do this. Original Wesker. We got him in live action. He's set up as the leader of the STARS team. They're sent to the mansion to investigate the mysterious murders and locate the missing Bravo team. Meanwhile, he's actually working for the Umbrella Corporation and collecting battle data against the bioweapons that have outbroke in the lab and in the mansion above. Well, by the end of that game, we see his big masterpiece, the Tyrant, made from the T-Virus, and mixing it with all kinds of other experiments to be the ultimate weapon, and the Tyrant kills Wesker. Well, at least we thought it did, and it would be some time before we see him again. Now, to give you a little background into Wesker, the reason he comes back is because it turns out that one of the co-founders of the Umbrella Corporation, Oswald Spencer, was running some experiments where he would take children at a very young age. He would steal them from their families, basically, and started doing experiments on them. His entire intent was to create superhumans, basically the perfect human being in every way, from physical attributes to intelligence. Everything. That's what he was working on. Meanwhile, there was another co-founder, James Marcus, who was looking to help and develop medicines and help people with handicaps and severe trauma to their bodies, or even cure diseases that are just killing off people around the world. This guy had, a lot of good intent there, but Oswald Spencer, he was looking to create superhumans and in a way find a way to incorporate that into himself so that he could practically live forever. Well, Albert Wesker was one of those children, and along the way in the story, we learn that out of all the children that were experimented on, only one survived, and it was Albert. So, our first version of Holocrons, yeah, stealing children. Oh yeah, that's we've seen similar stories like that. The First Order stormtroopers stolen from their families. It's pretty crazy. It's a messed up storyline, and these kids were being experimented on. So Albert had a rough childhood and a rough life all the way through. So it wasn't surprising to see how he turned out as a crazy villain, and it becomes Chris Redfield's nemesis throughout the rest of the series. Now, Albert Wesker, being one of the survivors, is a main character for the series and absolutely a fan favorite. And he gets adapted over time. When we see him in the original game, he's portrayed like this in the PS1. This was his character model, based off the actor that was playing him in the live action. He's got the blonde hair, he's got the sunglasses, kind of looks like Iceman from Top Gun, I always thought. So, cool design, and he was a cool character in this game, but we thought he was gone. So we see him develop over time. We see a higher res model of this character again later in Resident Evil Code Veronica, which is the next time we saw him. We find out Wesker survived, and there was a reason. It was because of the experiments that were done on him to create what was supposed to become superhumans, or the perfect human being. That was what Spencer's intent was, and Albert Wesker was the main experiment for it. So, when the Tyrant attacks Wesker, and we thought it killed him, the T-Virus got into his body and merged with his cells. His now superhuman cells were adapting the T-Virus, and instead of turning him into a mindless monster, it did its job. It did what Spencer was intending for it to do. It increased his intelligence. It increased his endurance, his physicality, his strength, and his speed. Wesker has superhuman speed. It's crazy, and you get to see it play out in Resident Evil 5. So we get a much higher res model of him and more details to him when we see him in Code Veronica, where he meets up against Chris Redfield again, who at that point finds out Wesker survived, but now he is super powered. He's got like orange Sith eyes at this point. It's crazy. They shine through his sunglasses sometimes. So the next time we see him at that point, we see him looking like this in Resident Evil 5. And you can see his glowing eyes through the sunglasses there. He wears this iconic long leather jacket with this like funky, almost 8-bit looking pattern throughout it. And he is on a rampage by the time we see him in Resident Evil 5. He's been working on multiple forms of the virus we've seen along the way in the games. The T virus was the main one. Resident Evil 2 dealt with the G virus, where William Birkin, one of the other scientists from Umbrella, was working on it with Albert Wesker. An advancement to the T virus was supposed to give more control. By the time we see Wesker in Resident Evil 5, he's working on a mixture of viruses codenamed Ouroboros, where he wants to get like a crazy amount of control on these bioweapons, not turn them into mindless zombies, but have them still function and can be controlled and told what to do. And he almost succeeded at that point. By the time we get to the end of Resident Evil 5, and this is a major spoiler, guys, for the game, big spoiler, Chris Redfield and Albert Wesker have a final battle. Wesker is at a point where he has been attacked so many times that his body is mutating to try to keep him alive, which is what happens to many of these bioweapons that have this mixture of the viruses in them, especially the G virus. Every time there's damage to the body, it mutates to try to save those cells, and they just keep becoming monsters and just becoming awfulness. And same thing starts happening to Wesker. By the end of it, they are fighting literally inside of a volcano. It is a crazy ending to the game. Eventually, Wesker is knocked into the lava. He is still alive, and he's hanging out of the lava. Chris is escaping on a helicopter with his partner at that time. Her name was Sheva, and she's a really cool character. We'll get into her another time. They have a rocket launcher on the helicopter. Aim, fire. Wesker is destroyed in a pit of lava, being hit direct with a blast from a rocket launcher. At that point, Albert Wesker is dead. 100% super dead. There's no coming back from that. So we get later sequels. Wesker's no longer the main villain. We have some new villains that we're dealing with, but it was okay. We had a really solid run with these main characters. Well, Wesker has gone through quite a few changes over the years. We saw him originally in live action on the first PS1, then we see his video game counterpart, until we saw him evolve into what we see on screen now in Resident Evil 5. Well, Albert Wesker, the character, made his way into the Paul Anderson Resident Evil movies with Milla Jovovich, and we get to see him in those films portrayed like this, taking huge references from his version in Resident Evil 5. He's got the glowing eyes, he's got the sunglasses, and he had the iconic leather jacket. In fact, by the time he's in the film, they also have Chris Redfield, and they have his sister Claire there, and there's Jill and Alice. All of them are together, and there's a big fight scene with Wesker. In fact, they actually took it to a whole new level and choreographed the fight to mimic exactly one of the fights that happens in a cinematic in Resident Evil 5. That was actually a really cool thing that they did, and one of the reasons why I still recommend watching the sequels to those Resident Evil films, because there's a lot of great moments like that fight. And seeing Albert Wesker like this, I mean, he really looked like he did in the game. He came to life. It was unbelievable actually seeing it. Now, the film around them wasn't all that good for the most part, but it was still kind of fun to watch. So we get Wesker in the movies, along with some of our other favorite characters being represented in different ways. Again, just like the other characters, Wesker was changed quite a bit. He doesn't have the history with Chris, and there's a lot of things missing to the story, but our characters, our favorites, were there on the screen, and we got to see them, and we were kind of just taking what we could get at that point. After that, we got the Welcome to Raccoon City film, and we get a new Wesker. And I forget this gentleman's name. I had it looked up before, and I moved it away, and I don't see his name anymore. But this actor here portrayed Wesker in Welcome to Raccoon City. Now, for the most part, Welcome to Raccoon City looked and followed Resident Evil 2 and 3, which Wesker was not in. But, like I said, they merged 4 different game storylines into one short movie. So at the same time as that's going on, they start playing out the mansion like we were just playing in the Resident Evil 1 game. And we get Wesker, along with Chris and Jill and Barry, and we're seeing the characters that we had in the games. But again, they were changed, and the dynamics between them were different. And this time, Wesker does not, I repeat, he does not work for Umbrella. He's just part of the STARS team. He's one of them. He's a good guy. And they're playing out the mansion moments, where Wesker is supposed to be collecting battle data for Umbrella. It breaks the story. By the end of the movie, they start to try to set it up for a cliffhanger ending where Wesker's going to get a choice to kind of go in the direction of working for Umbrella, which they go for it. It's not handled well, but they save that for a sequel after telling the story where he's supposed to already work for Umbrella and be the he's the undercover agent working for Umbrella pretending to be a good guy, except in that version of the film, Welcome to Raccoon City, he's not. So it was very, very strange. Oh, he plays Luther in Umbrella Academy. I haven't watched Umbrella Academy. I got to check that out. I've actually heard some good things about it. I liked him in Welcome to Raccoon City as far as his acting and everything. I thought he did a good job with what he was presented with. So again, we got our characters on screen, but it wasn't how we wanted to see them. Now we're up to date, and we're going to meet Albert Wesker again. The main villain from the original games. Albert Wesker, the undercover agent working for Umbrella, and all the conspiracies that are happening in that story. Yes, the Stanleys, Tom Hopper, right there. Thank you. We get images of our cast. All right, Darth Maximus, thanks for stopping by, man. I appreciate it. We get images of the cast for the new Netflix series, simply titled Resident Evil. At first, we didn't have any character names. And then we did. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to our new Albert Wesker. Lance Reddick, everyone. Lance Reddick, a fantastic actor. You might know him from shows like Fringe or from the movie John Wick. Lance Reddick is a fantastic actor. I love everything I ever see him in, and his performances are always top notch. He was cast and is Albert Wesker. Now, I'll let that sink in for a moment, because we've seen the evolution of this character. We've seen Wesker change over time, but for the most part, roughly the same style. Everything was, for the most part, you recognize. As soon as you saw Wesker, you know it's Wesker. But what I'm telling you right now is that the two characters you see on screen right now next to each other are the same person. And you might be wondering, how is that possible? Matt Cave, you're nuts. You're out of your mind. Well, that's up for debate. But I am telling you truth, Lance Reddick is Albert Wesker. Now, as you can imagine, when this was announced, people start losing their minds because human beings don't handle change well. When this got announced, as soon as that happened and they said this is Albert Wesker, there were a few things that came to my mind as possibilities. First thing being, okay, this is again another reimagining. They're doing their own thing. Okay, let's see where we go with this. And this was a long time in development, so there was a ton of time in between hearing about it for the first time until the show actually came out just recently. So I had a lot of thoughts. Who could this? How is he Wesker? What direction are they taking this in? Then I start hearing that the show will actually connect to the games. And when I heard that, now I got really confused. Because how can that possibly be? You're going to connect this show to the games, but one of the most iconic main characters in the entire franchise is completely miscast? There's got to be something up with that. But another thought came to mind. I remembered the storyline with the Wesker children. Oswald Spencer experimenting on children to make the superhumans, and tells Wesker that only one survived. Well, what if he was lying? What if another Wesker child survived? So this thought came into my mind. Maybe that's what's going on here. This could be really, really interesting. And yes, Callisto, connecting to the games is usually a good thing. And it actually is. Guys, as scary as this sounds, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. I really, really enjoyed this Netflix series of Resident Evil, and for many different reasons. So, we start hearing that this series is going to connect to the games. And then we get a full cast picture of who's in it, right? So we got Lance Reddick here, playing Albert Wesker there in the middle. Now, this is our main characters. We find out that the show is going to take place in the future. It's going to take place after everything that happened in the games. This is important. This is the most important element of the whole thing and why the show works. Albert Wesker is there. The girls on his left and right. Don't worry about the one sitting yet. We're going to get into who she is. And that's a huge thing right there. We have a cast of girls playing his daughters. Now, what you'll see is the two younger girls closest to Albert Wesker. Those are his daughters during the 2022 timeline. The show also takes place in 2036, where we see those characters grown up, which are the actresses next to them. So, Albert Wesker has two daughters, Jade and Billy, and we get to see them in two timelines. The show jumps back and forth, taking place in 2036 primarily, and also in 2022, which is still after everything that has happened in the games. So I've said this to some people before, with some other franchises, Star Wars in particular. One of the things I would have loved for them to do with Star Wars is just let's stay away from the already done story. Let's move either way back or way ahead. It's like everything happened, now let's tell a new story after everything. I would love to see that in Star Wars. Well, Resident Evil did it. So the showrunner, I believe his name was Andrew Dabb, and I have some articles we're going to go through as well to go into more details as to why this works. Andrew Dabb was in some interviews and flat out said, this series is a continuation of the games. But what about Albert Wesker? that's the key again, guys. This is a huge thing. But we're going to jump back to it in just a moment. We have one more character to tell you about here, and she is sitting down next to Lance Reddick. She plays a character named Evelyn. Now, the first name Evelyn is a nice throwback to Resident Evil 7. There's the little girl, the little creepy girl in Resident Evil 7. Her name was nicknamed Evie. Her name was Evelyn. That was definitely a throwback to that character, but that's not who she's playing. Her last name is Marcus. Evelyn Marcus, the daughter of co-founder of Umbrella, James Marcus. Now let's talk about him for just a few moments before we go further in the show. James Marcus is introduced to us in Resident Evil 0, the prequel to the first game. That game came out on the Nintendo GameCube after the remake of RE1, and it was done in the same graphic style, where we follow Bravo Team, the team that Alpha Team was looking for, and we play as Rebecca Chambers. Well, she starts to get involved with what was going on with Umbrella and in the mansion and in a different facility nearby, all during that outbreak, the initial outbreak that happened in the lab and in the mansion. And we learn about James Marcus, one of the co-founders of Umbrella, and he was running this facility that, as far as everyone knew, he had died many years before that. Well, it turned out that Umbrella had different ideas than what he wanted to do. He was looking to help people. Umbrella's trying to sell weapons. So they want other scientists to take over his work, and Albert Wesker was one of them, along with one of his partners, William Birkin, one of the best characters in Resident Evil 2, one of the lead scientists working on the G-Virus. Well, William Birkin and Albert Wesker murder James Marcus. Well, it turns out that James Marcus's experiment, working with the progenitor virus, he was mixing it with leeches and looking for ways to utilize them and see how they would adapt to this medicine or virus that he's working with, to see if it can adapt and heal and change their cells. Well, it turns out his experiment is what saved him. And by the next time we see James Marcus in Resident Evil 0, featuring Rebecca Chambers and a new character, Billy Cohen, which he only appears in this one and only game, so we won't go too far into his character. He puts the progenitor virus into his body and it saves him, turning him into a younger version of his own body. He's a young man again, and he's able to now seek revenge on the people that went after him, particularly that work for Umbrella. Unfortunately, the Stars Bravo team gets mixed up in it, and Rebecca and Billy have to deal with him. You can see in this image here the younger version of James Marcus, and also the creature he eventually turns into by the end of that game. Now, James Marcus, we find out, had a daughter named Evelyn. Well, we get to see her in this show. James Marcus is then featured as the father of Elizabeth. Now, let me jump back to the cast here for a moment. So it's really cool that they put her character in this. This was a character that wasn't really known about, but it connected this series in a way that I wasn't expecting. So they went deep into the lore. They went deep into the smaller elements of this plot that played out for many, many games over the past few decades. And they truly went for it as a continuation. We're now years later, and we're dealing with the children of characters that we knew in the old games. Calissa says, it sounds like the writers really know the deep lore of RE. That's awesome. Yes. They clearly knew the deep lore, and they were utilizing it in really cool ways in this series. So we find out that after everything happened in Raccoon City, as many of you know, and those who may not know, by the end of the third game, Raccoon City is literally wiped off the map with a nuclear blast. They bomb the city to try to isolate and contain the entire infection. Raccoon City is eliminated. We find out that years later, There was another outbreak in an Umbrella lab that's located in Tijuana, Mexico. And again, Umbrella needs to cover this up. They need to make sure that this does not go public. As far as people knew, Raccoon City exploded due to a massive gas leak. And then they probably told a similar thing with what happened in Tijuana. So for the public still thinks Umbrella is a good company, though along the way the company was shut down. The president of the United States basically had Umbrella ended. They had to shut down in America. Umbrella continued efforts overseas, and then eventually in the games, Umbrella does come back in a new way. Basically kind of like a rebranding. They want to become the good company that they were meant to be. Now, still, as far as the public is concerned, these were unfortunate accidents that happened. They don't know about the virus outbreak. There are a lot of conspiracy theorists out there trying to get the truth out there, but people aren't believing them. So as far as the major republic is concerned, the major portion of the public, they just think accidents happen and Umbrella was involved in one way or another, but now the company's trying to come back. So they're back in the good graces of people. And again, a pharmaceutical company that is trying to help the world. Well, we start this series with Umbrella making a new drug called Joy. Now, this drug is being marketed as an antidepressant. The idea is to help people with depression and just even along the way help people with focus issues. Maybe they have ADHD or something like that. It was like an all-around cure-all drug. The catch was, part of that drug that makes it work is the T-virus. Umbrella is still experimenting with the T-virus, which has been basically the baseline for all of the advancements that have been happening throughout this story. Throughout the games, the T-virus kept being involved. Now, we meet our version of Albert Wesker in this story. He's not a villain. He's actually a pretty nice guy. And he's trying to convince Evelyn Marcus to not put this drug out there. Delay it. It's going to hurt people. The T-virus creates monsters. And he's trying to convince the board and everyone involved to not put that drug out there. He's aware, obviously, of the past and what had happened with all these different outbreaks and does not want it to happen again. Evelyn, on the other hand, has her own agenda. She is basically the villain of this series. She looks at all of this as Umbrella was stolen from her father, and she's taking it back, and she's doing everything she can to make it her own and bring it back to her family. But she's doing it in a way of revenge, not really as what her father would have truly wanted, but she's got an evil twist. All this. Stanley says, only need to take 20,000 tablets of joy for some adverse reactions. Yes, they actually make a point of letting you know, because Evelyn is trying to shut down every attempt Albert makes to make the drug be delayed. And she forces him to admit during a board meeting that it would take 20,000 tablets taken all at once for the T-virus to impact someone and turn them into a monster. Now, there were other issues with this because the T-virus can be a little... you can't expect what it's going to do all the time. There are a lot of side effects that they still try to work out, and he's got major concerns here. Alan Copeland, welcome to the stream, buddy. But the strange thing is, Albert Wesker is not only there working at Umbrella, but he's alive. He's alive. In 2022, Albert Wesker is alive. Not only is he alive, but he looks completely different. So, my theory I had at the beginning, I kept it in mind as I watched the show. Maybe he's one of the other Wesker children and Spencer was lying and another one survived. Well, that gets debunked. Again, heavy spoilers, everyone, for what happens in this, but it needs to be talked about to explain what is going on here with this iconic character. It turns out they make a very clear point of letting you know that the games happened. They reference them. There's even like some documents and some footage. We even see Lisa Trevor from the Resident Evil 1 remake, and we see Wesker doing experiments with her. And it's evil Wesker with the sunglasses and the trench coat. We don't see his face yet, but we hear his voice. His voice is Lance Reddick. Okay, but they didn't show his face yet. So I still have the thought, it's not the Wesker from the game. Then they make a big point of pointing out that Wesker died in 2009, which is when Resident Evil 5 took place. And a conspiracy theorist sees him and says, that's him, but it can't be because he's dead. So they start making it very clear that this is supposed to be the Wesker that was in the games. This is where most audiences and critics and reviewers have the biggest problem with this show. The casting of Lance Reddick as Wesker. Now, I said it before, I love everything that Lance Reddick is in. I think he is a phenomenal actor. And when it comes to this show, in my opinion, he knocked it out of the park. He was great. And also, in my opinion, I think he was the best part of the entire show. Every scene he is in is fantastic. And it started to reach a point where I stopped thinking about the version of Wesker from the games. I was just more invested in his version of the character. So let's get into a little bit of information that came from the show's showrunner. It helps if I actually bring up the articles. Okay, so the big question on everyone's mind is Resident Evil, the Netflix series, canon? So we have an article here that was from Games Radar, and I got 3 articles here that we're going to go through, different elements to this that we're going to look at. Here's a screenshot from the show where he's taking a look at an experiment going on a rat, and this was pretty cool, this scene. It was really fun to see the transformation and everything. The special effects are great in this show, by the way. So I'm going to read through this real quick and give you guys some insight. Resident Evil fans, hold fire. The new Netflix series starring Lance Reddick as Albert Wesker is sure to invite hordes of burning questions and puzzled looks from those looking for a faithful adaptation of the games. All right. Is Resident Evil canon? If that's the case, how did Wesker survive falling into a volcano? Here's all you need to know about if and how the Resident Evil Netflix series fits into the game franchise. So as we come down here, in a way, yes. The Netflix series may be set in New Raccoon City. That's where we're at. The town is called New Raccoon City. In 2022, and post-apocalypse Europe in 2036. But the events of the games are all part of this universe. The Raccoon City incident does happen decades prior in 1998, confirming that everything that took place in Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 is part of the Netflix series world. In essence, the TV show is a sequel to the games, but it's unlikely that the games will ever reference the TV show. That's an interesting point right there, since we also have Resident Evil 9 on the way. Okay, here we go. Some quotes from Andrew Dabb, the showrunner for the Netflix series. The games are our backstory. Everything that happened in the games exists in this world, showrunner Andrew Dabb told us earlier this year. So the village is there. Village is from Resident Evil 8. We might not get there until season 5, but it's in our world. The movies are a different story, but everything in the games is a backstory for the show. Okay, guys, that's interesting because they're already talking about the sequels in the games, all the way up to Resident Evil 8, the most recent entry. The Netflix series also teases how the issue of Albert Wesker's seeming death in Resident Evil 5 will be resolved. One particularly annoying thorn in Umbrella's side in Tijuana tells his daughters Billy and Jade that Wesker died before 2022 and shouldn't be alive in the events of the show. So we have a conspiracy theorist character in there that meets up with Wesker's daughters and starts to reveal this information. Because like I said, everything was hidden from the public. There's no reason for his daughters or anyone of their generation to know what truly happened back in 1998 or even what happened even more recent in Tijuana. So those outbreaks were covered up. Umbrella was successful for the most part in keeping that information quiet. We got some more information here again regarding, does this exist in the game canon? This is an article from Den of Geek, written by Bernard Bow, I don't know how to say his name, but let's take a look at this as well. This is a cool screenshot of a character, one of the zombie creatures in the series. Has a really cool ability. Definitely check it out. She's able to control some of the other zombies. It's pretty fun. All right. The big question for longtime Resident Evil fans with regards to Netflix's new take on the franchise is whether or not it exists within the same canon as the games. Excuse me. Does this show continue or enhance the timeline of the video games in some way? The definitive answer is revealed in episode 7, titled Parasite, in which we learn that the show's Albert Wesker, father to Jade and Billy, is one of several clones that Wesker from the games made of himself. We even see Reddick don the signature leather trench coat and shades for a short flashback scene in which the original Wesker physically and verbally abuses every soul in his vicinity as only he can. So we find out that we're working with a clone of Wesker. But still, if it's a clone, why doesn't he look like Wesker? And when we see what's supposed to be Wesker from the games, it is still Lance Reddick. Still a key element here. Talking with Andrew Dabb again. I think Wesker from the games kind of gets pigeonholed into being the villain with a superhuman complex. With a Superman complex. Showrunner Andrew Dabb tells Den of Geek. But if you look at his backstory, there's a real story of trauma there. If you really look at the lore, you understand why he became the guy he became. According to lore, Wesker was taken from his family as a child by the founder of the Umbrella Corporation, Oswald E. Spencer, who essentially brainwashed Albert and experimented on his body. Traumatic indeed. For Dabb and his team, the show's mission was always to build on and continue the story from the games while introducing new characters that could carry the story forward. You have 25 to 30 years of lore from the games to look at, he says. I'm a big fan of the games, but not everyone who watches the show will have played one of the games or any of the games. Probably not all of the games. So it's like, how do you say things out to the people so that they can understand the story in a context of the show, but also build on the lore so that longtime fans find it interesting? See, that's a dilemma a lot of creators run into when you're dealing with pre-existing content. While the show's Albert Wesker is different from the man we see in the games, and his daughters are new characters entirely, they're still connected to the original games in a very direct way. And while the original Wesker died in a volcano in RE5, as is hilariously alluded to by Bert, another clone in the show, his legacy is felt even in the show's 2036 timeline, in which Billy bears a striking resemblance to the first Wesker in more ways than one. Albert and Bert are his children, literally his genetic copies, Dabb explains, and he's not a great guy. So if you were to get a clone of Hitler or Genghis Khan, does that make you evil? I think that's something they struggle with. As the series goes on, Albert realizes that there's a little bit of the original Wesker in there, maybe more than he would like to acknowledge. There are other ties to the games in the show as well. The original Raccoon City catastrophe and its subsequent media cover-up is a pillar of the main narrative. Albert's boss, Evelyn Marcus, is the daughter of scientist and Umbrella co-founder James Marcus from the games, and in the final moments of the show, Jade opens a letter given to her by her dad before his untimely death that reads Ada Wong. Now, Ada Wong is a main character from Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 4, and pops up in other entries as well. She is a main legacy character. So we find out that she's being referenced and characters are being guided to go to her, which means the plan is to keep going. Dab even mentions in that article that he's planning on at least 5 seasons to incorporate elements of all of the games. Now, that's in a way to push the story forward while referencing what came before so that you can keep introducing the characters from the story. And so far, 8 episodes of the series, which is the entirety of the first season, I think he did a great job. The connections are solid. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time watching this show, wondering what was going to happen next, and every time there was a reference back to the original games, I absolutely loved it. It's some of my favorite moments in the entire series. In this last article that I want to go through here with you, I want to let you guys know what his plan is here, because he's really looking to expand this. Netflix's Resident Evil showrunner wants Lady Dimitrescu, Jill Valentine, Claire Redfield to join. Here's Lady Dimitrescu from Resident Evil 8 or Resident Evil Village, the most recent entry in the series, and we're hearing that the showrunner wants to have her included in one way or another. And he's already let us know the Village exists in this universe. So it's still a continuation of the games. Netflix's Resident Evil has gotten off to a strong start in terms of viewership on Netflix, supplanting Stranger Things in the US and is #1 in 50 total countries at the moment. Critics have been harsh and viewers have been harsher, but it seems the show could perform well enough for a Season 2 renewal. I hope that it does, because I think more people need to give this a chance. And boy, does the show have big plans. You may have noticed that Season 1 of Resident Evil ended on about 5 different open-ended cliffhangers, and that's because its showrunner has big dreams not just for a second season, but for many, many seasons to come, where he wants to encompass all aspects of Resident Evil as a series, even some of the more recent iterations. Here's showrunner Andrew Dabb speaking to Polygon. Over the course of the series, I want to bring everything in. Left to my own devices, I want Lady D, I want the plant monster, I want it all. I want everything, just judiciously and responsibly over time. Before that, 2 characters seem like they may be more immediate in terms of joining the cast in addition to the finale spoilers, Ada Wong, who is name-dropped in the last episode. The question becomes, how do people change? So there are characters we haven't seen in quite a while, Jill Valentine and Claire Redfield being examples of that. How do they react in the present day to all this stuff happening? I love that. I would love to find out, what are our characters doing now at this point in the timeline? One of the biggest complaints among Resident Evil fans, and a point that is confusing here as Dab talks about all these game characters, is that Season 1 of the show really does not follow any individual game at all, and the game characters it does use, like Albert Wesker, are dramatically different than their counterparts in the series. Okay, guys. Oh, here's a screenshot from Welcome to Raccoon City. There's Chris Redfield and Claire Redfield. So this just goes on to the author talking about why they're confused as to why Wesker looks different. Now, that's something that is the biggest complaint Resident Evil fans have about the show, is the casting of Albert Wesker. Even though it's not Wesker from the game, like it's his clone and all of that, they explain all that. Everything in the story is explained except his look. So basically what happened here, guys, was the show is a continuation of the games, except it seems like there's going to be certain points where they're going to do their own interpretation for whatever reason. Now, I haven't found really a logical reason as to why they did this. I'm sure plenty of people are just going to call it like they do with everything else. Oh, it's a woke agenda or whatever people say about every little thing that comes out in this world. And it gets so annoying after so much time. It's like, just sit back and enjoy the show and see if you enjoy it. And if you do like it, be happy that you enjoyed it. But as a longtime fan of the series, literally the life of the series since day one, I myself am also confused as to why this main character was cast as he was. That said, Lance Reddick knocked it out of the park. His performance is quite honestly the best part of the entire series, and I love everything he did and his portrayal of Albert Wesker. It came down to the performance more than the look. The look, as you go through this show, at least for me, in my mind, it became less and less and less important until I stopped thinking about it. As far as I was concerned, this was Wesker. He was acting accordingly. And when there were flashbacks to the actual Wesker, or at least his portrayal of it, he acted like Wesker, like he would at that point in Resident Evil 5. In fact, one of the flashbacks is so clever in letting you know where it takes place with just such a subtle little line and a mention. He's talking about, because he has his clones there working on stuff to build things for him. And it's interesting. It's like, wow, how long has he had these clones? He's wearing his garb from Resident Evil 5. Where at this point did it take place? Well, in Resident Evil 5, Wesker captures Jill Valentine and takes control of her using a chest implant that feeds part of the virus to her in a developed version of mind control. And he asks one of his clones for an update on the status of the chest implant. So they are literally working on it at that point. So the scene ends up taking place shortly before he takes control of Jill Valentine. Such a subtle and deep cut moment that really fans of the games will certainly catch. But general audiences probably won't know what he's talking about. But it was these moments that connected back. There was all these little things that happen. In fact, there's moments throughout the series where just stuff in the background on the set, just as it pans out, you see something on a shelf and you're like, oh my goodness, oh man, there was a point where they're in one of their houses and on the shelf are literally the canisters that are the ammo gunpowder that you mix in Resident Evil 3. I was like, wow, what a cool use of that. It's so funny. I mean, that's probably not what it was meant to be, but it was literally that. Like, you look at it, I was like, okay, there's the ammo canisters. All kinds of little Easter eggs. They even use fixed camera angles in many scenes to mimic the style of the original 3 games. It's so awesome when they do it, and it was really done super well. So overall, the Netflix series Resident Evil, from everything I've read and everything I've seen in the show, having watched the entire series, I binge watched it. So I had everything fresh in mind. I saw the whole story pan out, and it was so awesome. Like I said, I was on the edge of my seat watching this. As far as I'm concerned, this is the best Resident Evil content we have received since the games. This is the live action Resident Evil that I didn't know I wanted, but it turns out it's the Resident Evil we needed. It stays out of the way of the story that was already told, and it is now continuing with a new story with new characters and referencing legacy characters as needed. Eventually, like the showrunner was saying, he wants to incorporate everything. So I'm sure that this is going to keep getting bigger as long as future seasons are greenlit. And I hope that they are, because like you heard in that article, there were many cliffhangers with these plots. And I can't wait to see how this turns out. I'm excited to rewatch it to catch all of the things that I missed throughout. But I have to say, guys, as a lifelong Resident Evil fan, I give this show high praise. I think it's really, really well done, and it's worth sitting down to watch it. I recommend binge watching it personally. I thought it was great. It is pretty long. Every episode, if it's not an hour or a little more, it's just under an hour. These are solid episodes. It is not rushed. Each episode plays out comfortably. It's well paced. I think the acting is spot on, especially from Lance Reddick. And when you see his interactions with the woman playing Evelyn, oh man, the two of them, the dynamic between them, it's awesome. She is a character that you learn to love to hate, and it's so great. I absolutely love it. The Stanley says the daughters were terribly written, unnecessarily dramatic, CW level of drama. The mutated creatures were great. So it's interesting point. That was a lot of the complaints that critics had regarding the daughters. But you have to think about they're teenagers and they're going to school in a new town. They're forced to move, and what do teenagers put up with nowadays? Think back to when you were a teenager and what were the things that were important to you? What things caused emotional reactions for you? What things did you consider important in your world as a teenager? When we think about it as an adult, it doesn't seem all that important, and it seems like a bunch of just wasted time. But to a teenager, these are the things that are important to them. And personally, I think they were portrayed accurately, how teenagers would be. Now, some of it does get a little over the top with those characters, especially with Jade, one of the main characters that we follow, probably the daughter that we follow the most in this series. But when you see her adult counterpart, you understand how her character evolved over those years, because we keep jumping back and forth from 2022 to 2036, and I think it was done pretty well. But yes, like any show featuring kids or teenagers, there's always going to be moments where it's just kind of like, all right, whatever, but it's all important, and when you get to the end of it, you realize how everything connected, and I think they did a good job. Callisto says, this sounds so interesting. I'll be doing a watch party in Everyday Geeks. Nice. Really looking forward to it now. That's awesome, dude. He also says, we had to move when I was a sophomore in high school, and it was a gut punch. I was mad at my mom for months, so I get that. Yeah, and you'll see that in this show. The daughters, they really give their dad a hard time about this. It's not an easy thing that they did. And it's also like a weird community that they moved to. They moved to New Raccoon City, which is completely controlled by Umbrella. You're going to see there's a lot of the buildings are like this stark white, like the school practically looks like it's a laboratory. And the scenes though that actually do take place in the lab look great. The set design, I think, is fantastic in the show. The effects were really great. There's some that are a little better than others, and some that are kind of like, so. But for the most part, everything was done really well, especially the zombie effects and the battles that happen into it. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of drama. And seeing it, how it pans out throughout these 8 episodes, it creates a really solid start to this story. I hope it continues. I hope fans give this a chance. I hope it brings in new fans and makes them want to play the games, because that's where it all came from. The games are always going to be the most important part of this. And the fact that this acts as a continuation, regardless of the change in a character, I think it's really well done. Now, that said, I want to talk about how I would rate this show. And there's 2 ratings I would give this. One is just a what if. Callisto, real quick, Callisto is saying, have you heard if they greenlit it yet for more seasons? They have not yet, at least as far as I've read. The show just launched last week. or just this past weekend. So it's only a few days old at this point, but I haven't heard anything about the second season being greenlit. I hope it is. It is in danger, though, with the reviews that are coming out and how critics are talking about it and how audiences are reviewing it. Because now, everybody's a critic now and everyone's a reviewer, as I'm doing that as we speak. But look, some people hate for the sake of hate. And no matter what, the people who hate things, or at least claim to hate things, yell the loudest. And those are the voices we're always going to hear first. And that's unfortunate. That happens with every franchise. Every single franchise out there that anyone's a fan of, that's what you're going to hear first. Personally, I try to get through that, whether it means ignore it or just try to hear and understand their side of it, but really get my own point of view on it. Like anything I say, if you want to have a point of view on something, on a show or a movie, watch it for yourself. See how you feel about it. And if at all possible, go into it before hearing any reviews, as I'm telling you all about the show here to people who haven't seen it yet. But I feel really good about the show. I think I have a very positive outlook on it because I enjoyed it. I truly did. I sat down to watch this the day after it launched. So it came out the night before. I didn't get a chance to sit down right away, but the day after I sat down and watched it, I didn't read an article. I didn't watch any reviews. I didn't watch the trailers. I went in and watched the show. And this is my opinion on the show, having gone in and giving you how I feel about it as an audience member, as a gamer, and as a lifelong Resident Evil fan. I highly recommend this show. I think it was really well done, and I think it's just getting started as long as we allow it to survive. That's the key. So what I'd ask of anyone, if they have the ability to do it, or just, anything on social media or any way of getting your voice out there, if you do enjoy it, if there are things you like about it, spread that. Let's try to overwhelm the hate. Because in many cases, the hate is the smaller portion. They just yell louder. And that's what everyone sees. But if you do enjoy it, let people know. And let them know why you enjoyed it. Because people look for good in things. They truly do. But sometimes it's hard to find it. Sometimes you have to dig a little bit. Hey, welcome to the stream. RE1 is my favorite along with RE5. Yeah, great entries, both featuring Chris Redfield, one of my favorite characters of all time. Yeah, definitely great entries. And Obsession, you're so right. There is so much hate out there. You have to really dig through it to get to some of the good. And look, there's nothing wrong with not liking a show or a movie. There's shows and movies I don't like. And I'll explain, why I don't like them, but I always try to find the good in it anyway. I watch some pretty crazy B movies out there and stuff, so it's, sometimes it's tough to find the good in it. But there's nothing wrong with disliking a show or a movie. Some things don't land for everyone, and that's okay. But it's the way that you present your opinion on it that really counts in the end. If you're just screaming about how much something sucks, you're not really saying much at all at the end of the day, because there's no real information in there. People just yelling that everything's terrible, they don't know how to write, but there's no details. That's what I hear all the time in the reviews. So what I wanted to bring to you guys is my opinion and my reaction to this brand new Netflix series of a beloved franchise that I have loved since 1996, and I really hope that it survives. So let's get into my rating of the show before we wrap things up. As it stands, the way the show came out, with how all characters were presented, and most importantly, how Albert Wesker was presented and handled in the casting, I'm giving this show a rating of a 7 out of 10. Now, I think a 7 out of 10 I think is really good for things. And this is just the first season. This has room to grow, right? So I never want to explode with the most positive rating ever or of anything. You know, things have room to grow. They clearly left it off on cliffhangers. Their plan is to keep going. So I'm all on board. Take that time. You have the room to grow. Let's do this. As it stands, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 that would have been higher if Albert Wesker was cast more accurately to the source material. Now again, and I can't stress this enough, Lance Reddick did a phenomenal job in this show, and I loved every scene he was in. His performance was great. He did great. In one of the interviews I saw with him, he didn't really go into playing the games and researching this character. He wanted to, you know, he got a role and he wanted to make it his own. Like, obviously you have to learn something about the character, what their motives are and things like that, but he didn't deep dive. So it seemed like he didn't even know what Wesker would have looked like. But he played the character. He acted appropriately. And when you see him as evil Wesker, it's evil Wesker. And then when you see the clones and how they all have different personalities, that's how they act. That's what we got. And the performance is awesome. But it's that initial shock of seeing this character that we all knew as fans forever being completely different visually. That's what threw it off, and it's going to throw it off for every fan. It's unavoidable. You can't ignore it. And there isn't really a reason out there why the casting was done this way. But I loved his performance, and now having seen it, I don't know, I don't think I want someone else to play him, like, for the show and for the sake of it. So the reason I lower my rating to a 7, because I would have given this show a 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10, hands down. It's not perfect, but damn was it close, especially in comparison to all of the Resident Evil content in shows and movies that we've had in the past. I would have given this a 9 out of 10, but that shock from the casting throws it off. And the only reason is because they made such a point of letting us know that this is connected and a continuation to the existing games. And if you're going to continue a story, you should continue the characters accordingly. They already exist. There's no reason to dramatically change them. And I haven't read or seen any interviews about a reasoning why they did it. Who knows why? I don't know what they were thinking. I'm sure there's a reason in someone's head as to why they did this. I'm sure most people and reviewers are going to say, oh, it's an agenda for this and a blah, 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 and a blah, 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 blah. A whole bunch of the same crap we hear about everything, right? It's going to be all that. All of that is out there. I 100% guarantee it. I just ignore it. I don't go looking for that. I want to experience it for myself. And when it got to the end of the series, I loved it. But that I can't ignore what happened with the casting. I can't ignore it. Even though I absolutely loved what I got, I can't ignore that. So, because of that, what would have been a 9 out of 10, I drop it to a 7 out of 10. But I am looking forward to what happens in season 2, if we get it, and then even and beyond. We saw he's thinking about even up to 5 seasons. I am already hooked. I am interested. I am ready. Andrew Dabb, showrunner, Netflix. I like what you're doing. Now, make sure you reel it in. Keep things under control. Please do not dramatically alter pre-existing characters any further. I have no problem at this point having seen a phenomenal performance. I am fine. The character of Wesker, as far as I was concerned anyway, was already dead. If this is canon, he's already dead. So, okay, we got clones and stuff, and we see how this plays out. It's fine. We're good. We are good, Netflix. Andrew Dabb, we are good. Everything is solid, and we are ready for Season 2. But let's make sure we do it right. Please do it right. You have so much control in this. It's all in the palm of your hands. This is the best Resident Evil content we have received outside of the games. And I can't wait for more. Guys, thank you so much, everybody, for joining me tonight. I know this was kind of a weird, all over the place stream, but I had a lot to say about this, and I'm sure I'm going to have more to say about it as time goes on. It's just, I get very excited about the Resident Evil franchise. It's my favorite game series of all time. So I'm always going to be passionate about it, and I'm always going to be upfront and truthful with all of you about how I'm feeling about it, because if there's something I don't like, I'm going to let you know. And if there's things I like, of course I'm going to let you know, because I want to be able to share the good experiences that I have with all of you guys. Callisto says it's a great sign that his portrayal made you forget that his character is different than you expected. I can't ask much more. Yes, that's the thing. As an actor performing a character, Lance Reddick won me over. And he won me over pretty quick. He only had 8 episodes to do it. He did a great job. Guys, go check it out. It's on Netflix now. All 8 episodes are out. I can't recommend it enough. T. Davidson says, I have the same opinion as you with the show. Hopefully a season 2 with the name drop at the end. Yes. Oh, Ada Wong. She always pops up, guys. Ada Wong is one of those characters that we always love hearing her name in this franchise, because there's always something interesting and exciting that surrounds her. Guys, thank you again so much for joining me tonight. This was a lot of fun. I'm already like starting to lose my voice from talking so much on this. It's crazy. But I have so much fun playing these games, and I'm glad that you guys have fun watching me play these games. And if you've never played a Resident Evil game in your life, go try it out. You might be surprised at how much you like it. Everybody, until next time, keep retro gaming alive, because one day your games will be retro too. I'll see you guys on the next one.